Debs.
Law? That's not you.
Surprise with me.
Hi, Carlos. We're joined by Karl today. That was nice. Laura, just in case anybody's wondering where Laura is, she's absolutely up to her neck in delivery, her best place. She loves it to bits. And she's got a load on this week. So we sort of thought, let her be present, let her be powerful, let her do what she does best. And I thought I'd invite Karl to come join us to talk about our second in our 4-part series around powerful presence, which is what we were talking about last week. And I think we're just going to build on a bit of that because, when we do talk about presence, we're not talking about the one that's loud or performative, but the kind that people feel. And Karl, I'll get Karl to give you a bit of an intro in a minute because I'm actually going to tap into his experience as a performer and also his experience now as a coach and part of the Wishfish team. So we can really unpick what it means and what it takes to have powerful presence and actually what we might need to consider in order to be present whenever we chose to show up. Because as like we said last time, are you someone who lights the room up as you walk in or as you walk out? So on that note, while you're thinking about it, Karl, hello. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to since we last spoke.
Hello. I'm actually trying to think back to when I joined the last episode of Single Coach, and I cannot pull the date from me. So I feel like it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
What's been going on? I'm still doing me.
Good. I love that. Still doing you.
Doing me. Still, fun, friendly and fab and all of that. Been really interesting. I think the world of work at the moment is an incredibly interesting place. And I think, we know this as Wishfish, the space that we're stepping into has slightly evolved over time as well. We're now not only bringing what we know through our coaching expertise, but also through our, individual skills and coming in at that kind of consultancy angle, which is really incredible. And it's so much fun to, I suppose, work with some of those global organizations that we're working with to, get them ready for whatever comes their way and support them in, either program learning or, individual coaching. So it's been fab, been busy.
Yeah. And I suppose when you're thinking about that, why does it matter more now than ever? I think as you've been saying, the world is changing, how people are being is changing. And I think that presence becomes your proper currency, as I like to call it, not necessarily your job title, not how loud you are, not how much you say, but how you make people feel when you show up. And I suppose, like I did with Laura, we had a couple of questions that I was asking her last time. So I'm going to ask you one of the similar questions. So just as a start for 10, Karl, when you hear the phrase powerful presence, what does that mean to you? And what does it not mean? So where do you want to start?
Ooh, okay. What does it mean and what does it not mean? I think it's really interesting because for me, I've obviously worn many different hats over my professional working life. But I think the thing that I love and the thing that I really see at the moment is that presence is a result of something, right? Presence is not the doing. It's not the I must do X to achieve presence. It comes from a place of feeling. And I think when I think about what it's not, I sometimes like to go back to, when I was a performer and when I put that hat on for a moment and when I think about powerful presence, there's another word that kind of springs to mind before that. And that word for me is confidence.
Right,
So if we're thinking about actually, in order for me to be in the room, have presence, show up as the best version of me, own the space that I'm in, that comes from the feeling of confidence. And then the presence follows. What I don't think about volume. That doesn't come to mind. It's not the loudest person in the room. Charisma also doesn't come to mind. You can be incredibly charismatic, but that doesn't always, I think, translate into presence. And then, like I said earlier, you know, you're not being the loudest person in the room. And I mean that more in a way of, sorry, as I move back, you know, when someone walks into a room and they kind of hit you with just this wall of energy. And I think it's one of those where, you know, the energy is loud and the presence almost, it's too impactful that it actually kind of turns people off. So that's what I think it's not.
So I like that. So what do you think it is then? You mentioned the word confidence, and I know we hear this a lot, right? When we're, you know, running some of the speaker stagecraft workshops, or, you know, Laura's running some of the trainer workshops that she does, and that word comes up again and again and again. So let me ask you a question. Do you think we're born confident?
No, this is obviously, these are my views. These are my personal views. But no, I don't believe we are born confident. I believe it's a skill that it evolves, it adapts. It has highs, it has lows, it can be knocked, it can be flying. It's a skill. It's an incredibly emotionally intelligent skill. Is where confidence sits for me. And it's funny because I think about a moment much earlier in my life when I was a performer, and, you know, spending over a decade in theatre and dance, you know, you would think on paper, well, that world looks like confidence, right? You know,
that's true.
You're on stage, you're visible, you're literally being watched, you know, every second, whether you're in the rehearsal studio or whether you're on stage, all eyes are on you. But it's interesting because what people don't see is how much of that world is actually about getting it right. And it's about, you know, hitting the mark or saying your lines properly or being what's expected of you. And it's interesting. I think I remember a shift, and don't get me wrong, you know, it wasn't overnight. It was very subtle, where I began to realize that the performances that really landed were the ones that people felt. It was the ability to create a space where what I was doing and my confidence in doing what I was doing created a presence that sparked a feeling in someone else. And it's always interesting because those ones where, you know, you do a beautiful, you know, duet and you then have responses from the audience going, oh my God, you brought this up for me, or you reminded me of this, or, you know, you've got people coming up to you in tears, which is wonderful because what you've done is you've sparked something in them. And it's interesting because they're not always the ones that were technically perfect.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
It's the ones where it's really weird. It's the ones where I was actually there. It wasn't my character. It wasn't my.
So you were in it.
Yes, you're present. You're connected. You're not performing presence and confidence, but allowing yourself to be seen. And I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, it's quite confronting when it's put like that, because if you go, oh my God, well, I'm not performing that confidence and showing up in a way that I believe the room wants, if I'm actually allowing parts of myself to be seen, there's an element of, well, I might have to just let go of a little bit of control here. But let me fast forward, because in the world that I'm in now, coaching, learning and development, working with global organizations. I don't know about you, Debs, but I'm seeing the same thing everywhere, where people chase confidence almost like it's something you acquire.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, like it's a skill set, or it's a toolkit, or it's something that you switch on before a big moment. And if I'm really honest, a lot of what we call confidence is just really well practiced performance.
That's a
right?
good point, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose so. Because, and I suppose the more that you do it, the more you get good at it, and the better you get at it. Therefore, the more you want to do it, the more confident you get because you've practiced it over time.
Exactly.
And before you know it, it becomes part of who you are, it becomes congruent with you, and you own it in a way that enables people to, as you said, feel it as they're coming on to that. So yeah, it's really interesting when you talk about that, because sometimes you do feel it. And that's why I love the world of theatre and performance, all of that creative stuff. You can feel a sculpture, you can feel a painting just to be immersed in it. And that's the power of presence, right? And the energy it creates within you. And I suppose, when we think about being congruent with who we are, owning who we are, we have to consider, I suppose, what's going on with our bodies, right? So in your experience, what types of things should we have a thought about, be aware of?
So, well, I love that you've brought in that element of like 4D. How do we create presence through confidence in 4D? And I think there's almost two ways I can look at this. I think it's something that I know personally well. I think as a gay man, there's been moments in my life where confidence looks like fitting in, but it isn't that. It's something that's what I didn't know at the time was a very emotionally intelligent skill to have, where you're able to read the room, assess what sort of energy does this room need from me, what do I need to bring to this room, where can I, like you say, where can I light this space up? And there's an element of adjusting that happens, and self-management of how you come across. And again, looks like confidence, and it felt like presence. You make that mark. But I think if I was to flip it and look at this through our coaching lens, we see this on speaker stagecraft, where it's very, very clear that actually a lot of showing up with presence, owning your space, being in that space of control and going, I've absolutely got this, is just well practiced performance. And I've started to see confidence and presence very differently. It's not as something you perform, but as something that happens when you, when you stop abandoning yourself in the moment, or you stop being your own worst critic, or, you stop pulling yourself down. It's, it's almost, there's so many layers. It's almost like, it's almost like an anatomy, right? Where you have each of these individual layers that allow elements of structure and the components that allow confidence to really shine through. And I mean, hey, if you know within yourself that feeling of, I know what I bring, we always say no one is you, and that is your power.
Absolutely.
So there's structure to it. It's there's an anatomy to this.
And I think, as we sort of explore the anatomy of what that could look like, we've mentioned already, you have to be true to yourself, so that congruent with who you are and belief in you and all of that, and owning your space, as you've said, lighting it up, adjusting, being able to read the room, feel the energy and the vibe, and adapt accordingly. And I suppose that takes some nerve, really, to be able to trust yourself, to be able to read that room and then be properly present in it, and people remember it. So what's going on there within our own bodies and our nervous system?
Wow, it's so interesting, because I love that you've, when I talk about this element of anatomy and the anatomy of confidence, funnily enough, the only word that I could find that really landed was confidence. You know, the C-O-N-F-I-D-E-N-C-E. There is no other word that can encapsulate the anatomy of confidence, much like the word confidence, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And you mentioned it there. So obviously the first thing is congruence. Who I am is how I show up. There's no mask, there's no split. It's just owning who you are in that moment. And it's a really vulnerable, but also incredibly powerful space to be, because what we're saying is there is confidence is when there's no gap between you and your behavior. You are who you are, and you have to stand in that power. And it leads me beautifully into our second letter of O, which is that ownership, where we have to take responsibility for ourselves. This is my voice. This is my space. Yeah. These are my choices. No one can give you confidence. You have to decide to stand in it and feel it for yourself.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I think I suppose then managing our nerves, because that's the big thing that comes through, isn't it? When people, say to them about being powerfully present, some people go, I don't know if I can, and their nerves start coming through. So I suppose it's how we regulate our nervous system to be able to make sure that we have that freedom to be able to perform in a way that's congruent with who we are and owning our space. So you can move up and down that, right? Because there's a couple of things that have to be present, because there's nothing better than freedom when you're delivering something or you're being part of a team discussion or part of a group. Not freedom to the point where you create havoc and chaos, but because you've been aware of it, there is a freedom to explore, to navigate, to practice, to give it a go, which I think is really important for people to, think about. Who are they in that moment? And, what is it about them that enables them to show up in that space? So should we take a pause and explore what else is important? So, Karl, we have been talking about confidence. It's not how the loudest in the room. It's not the talent, most talented. It's not the perfectionism part of it either, because as you said, sometimes the best performances, in inverted commas, or the best feeling or vibe or presence is when you're not really thinking about it. It may not always be scripted, but you've connected with it. And I think that's really important. And how much of that comes from knowing, I suppose, who you are, your identity as an individual, but also the direction you're moving in? How important is that?
For me, I always say confidence is anchored in identity, not approval.
Okay.
If we're thinking about
anchored in identity, not approval. Not approval. Yeah. I like that.
The clue here, Debs, is self-belief.
Yes.
If we're looking for approval, what we're probably looking for is other belief.
Yeah.
But what happens is that it takes away from having confidence in our own identity, knowing who you are, and trusting what you bring. It almost kind of, I suppose, that self-belief element inspires more of a purpose.
Yes.
I know what I'm here to do, but focusing on who I am, trusting myself, my identity, what I can bring, beats comparison every day. And it's the direction. It's your purpose to go, this is the direction that I'm heading in. And knowing that, that clarity of, I know what I'm here to do. And I don't need to compare myself to others, because I'm so in self-approval, self-belief, that I know my direction. I know where I'm heading.
And that's really interesting, because you see that all the time, most of the time, where people, as you said, think they're chasing something. But I, certainly from my perspective, when I've been completely in it and absolutely in the now, fully present myself in whatever it is I'm doing, it is super powerful when you recognize that, I haven't had to think about what I'm going to say. It's just come out. the expression, if you like, has come from a place of truth and honesty, and kindness and care, which I know are super important. But it's I love the fact you're talking about the non-comparison bit as well, because how often do you see people compare themselves with others?
Oh, I mean, you know, the world of work can be a bit of a scary place at times, right?
Sure.
You know, you're looking to go, am I doing enough? Am I, you know, is what I'm producing, is it good? You know, it's weirdly enough seeking the approval to go, is what I'm doing good enough?
Yeah.
And you know, some of more of that executive coaching is about getting people to sit in that space to go, you are the expert at what you do.
Yeah.
You know, no one knows this job like you do. So when you're having those conversations, it's not about them shaking off, I suppose, their inner critic. It's actually about shifting that lens and going, you've got to sit in what you know. And the one thing I've really learned, and it's a very bold move, but I think it's really powerful, is I don't dilute myself. You know, it's no shrinking. There's no posturing or pretending to be someone who I'm not. I know what I bring. So then if comparison is the fastest way to lose yourself, I've got to then turn on that non-comparison mindset.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that. And I think, again, this is when it comes back to, you know, people always say, you know, how do you do that when you're not going to compare yourself with somebody else? Because we all do it, you know, or they've done that better than I would have done. Oh my God, they're amazing. All of that doubt gets whizzing around in our heads. But I think it does come from a place of, as you said, not really understanding what you bring and knowing your uniqueness is the bit that actually makes you stand out. And I know, you know, the way that you have the courage to act as you are and be you now, it'll turn some people on, it'll turn some people off. Not everybody loves that. But I think going back to what you said, it's the awareness of the impact that you're going to be having. And I think it always comes back to impact when you say, well, that wasn't my intent. Yeah, but you still did it. Yeah. So what was the impact of that? And I think that a bit to have the courage to be true to who you are, act in the way that's the right way to nurture and could be compassionate and all those lovely things that we know work for people. But again, that takes some energy, doesn't it, to be able to conjure that up. Talk to me about energy.
Well, I love that you've just brought in that element of courage. Because they almost kind of go hand in hand with each other. It's having that courage to kind of do the thing that you want to do, even though it feels a little bit uncomfortable.
Yes.
And there's an element of visibility over safety, I suppose. You know, when we're in the room and we are doing, you know, our workshops and we're encouraging people to step into that space of uncomfortability, you know, I think there's an element of people that go, well, if I'm confident, there's no fear.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
It's just not true. Like confidence isn't the absence of fear. Confidence is being able to move with it. Just because someone comes up and shows up as confidence doesn't mean they're not fearful. They've learned how to move with the fear, how to take the fear and go, do you know what? I've got this, my identity, I know myself, I'm ready to go. And the energy, which ultimately is then the presence that comes out, right? It's like the cherry on top of the confidence cake, where now that we've layered, I suppose, you know, all what we've been talking about, the presence piece is the energy. Where is attention going? You know, I love this saying and we use it. Where attention goes, energy flows.
That's true.
And people feel this, you know, it's the confidence is felt before it's understood. And that's looking at it from that kind of, you know, opposite lens. You know, you can feel someone's confidence before understanding where they've got it from, or potentially seeing below the surface and knowing how much performance prep did they put in to achieve that.
Yes.
How are they self-talking? You know, we're very good at looking at something and going, oh my God, they're so confident. But we don't know the fear that are potentially being pushed down. We don't know the self-belief work that's going on under the surface.
Yeah.
The beauty of confidence is that people will see your energy and your presence and think you've got it. And it's an incredible thing. When you find it, you're like, oh my God, I've been doing life. I've been doing life all wrong this entire time, you know? So confidence is always felt before it's understood.
So Karl, as we said, we have actually talked through the anatomy of confidence. And you know what I've just realized? That actually what we've been speaking about, and very clever, Carlos, was we've actually come up with the word confidence. So when we look at it, congruent, ownership, nervous system, safety, freedom from perfection, identity, that self-belief, direction, knowing your purpose, expression, non-comparison, courage, and energy. They actually spell the word confidence. So how do we bottle that for people so that, you know, people are being those things, not doing those things? Because the more we are aligned with who we are, the more truth shows up and the more people connect with us better. So tell me, what would be your call to action for our listeners?
Do you know what? Just on that, as you've said, it's more about the being rather than the doing. Because if we come at this from a space of, if I do 1, 2, 3, I'll achieve X, Y, Z.
You might still achieve it.
Well, yes, but
you might have left something behind.
Yeah, the catch here is, I suppose, a question around those who go, well, I do this and doing this makes me confident. And if we're focusing on the doing, I think it's what if confidence isn't about becoming more impressive, more charismatic, more well-structured in a meeting, more directive in my management style? What if it's not about the doing? What if it is about the being? So being more congruent with who you are, being more grounded with knowing your strengths and really thriving in that space of, I can do this because this is what I bring to the party.
Yes.
And I think the being element is like being more available to yourself.
Nice.
Rather than being more available to other people. Yeah,
absolutely. Know thyself. I think that's Aristotle said that way back when, and they knew a thing or two. Laura would be dead impressed that we brought in the old guard, the Stoics. I think it was with Stoics. I have no idea. But anyway, Laura, you're correct, as I'm sure. But so you're right. It is about being and having that presence. You're right. And that is in turn powerful. So if there's one thing somebody could do differently, could they give it a go, think about, try? What would you suggest?
God, do you know what? I'm just going to strip it back and just be really real, I think, because there's no way of sugarcoating it. Be nicer to yourself.
Yes.
Like, just be nicer. Do you know what I mean? Just be kind to yourself. Just, you know, not, funnily enough, me about to say it, not every day is going to be perfect.
No, it's not about perfection, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just stop being your own worst critic. Just be kind to yourself, because my God, if there's one thing that confidence thrives off, is kindness, right?
Absolutely. Definitely.
If I'm speaking kind about myself, guess what? I'm going to feel really good about myself. I'm going to feel great in the skin that I'm in. And that is
the skin you've been given, right?
Well, yes,
make the most of it.
You know, maybe I'll take a nod, like maybe nip or tuck here and there, but you know, it's the skin that I have been given.
It's the skin I was been given, so I'll just embrace it. Yeah,
enhancement. It's only enhancement.
It's maybe a few enhancements, but not much.
But you know, even saying that's external. It's external.
Yes,
it's not
nothing internal.
No, it's a doing. If I was to, you know, lift this and pull that.
You're doing something rather than being. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's such a thing, isn't it? It's such a fine line. And I think, but the more awareness we bring to it, and I suppose that would be my share the secret. So I think the awareness of how you are being, I think is going to be key to your presence. And it's not about being perfect, as we said. It's not about being right, the loudest. It's not about the job title. It's about the vibe you're creating, the energy you're giving out. Because you will either pull people towards you or dispel them away from you. And that's within us. Nobody else can make that apart from us. So we have a choice in that to, be kinder to ourselves, but also to others, because you're naturally then, what's the word I'm looking at? Like naturally explode that strength out, something like that. So I think that would be my share, the energy bit. Yes, that would be my share the secret. I think if anybody you feel is doing things to try and be more confident, flip it, get them to listen to this and get them to really flip that around to go, how do you be first? And then you will have, and then you will do whatever it is you need to be doing to enable that to show. But I think the being bit, if somebody is lacking in their self-belief, not sure of where they're at, what's really important for them, they're not, if you like, regulating how they are feeling in that moment and having the freedom to explore and just, put themselves out there, themselves. I know we all wear a bit of a mask at times because we can't be all crazy people all of the time and show up as we want to. But I think there's an element of managing ourselves better and believing in ourselves, which is the key one to it. So yeah, anybody out there that just think, oh, how do I get powerful presence? Then I would suggest having a think about the anatomy of confidence that we've just shared with you. Which would be super useful for anybody, really. I've learned a lot today. And you're right. I love that. We feel it before we understand it. And I think that's super important. So Carlos, thank you so much for stepping in for Laura as she's like traveling around the world doing her thing. So I just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your thoughts, sharing with us the anatomy of competence that you came up with, which I think it really is a good thing to think about because, when it happens, you're right. I've seen people do trust you, people do listen to you, and people do feel you. And I think that's the most powerful position we can have, to make sure it's the right impact, not the wrong one. So I want to say a massive thank you for giving us your time. And look forward to seeing you on one of our other podcasts soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun sitting in Laura's chair for a moment, but I shall hand it back over to her.
I love that. Yeah. And you forgot the red lipstick, so we know it's obviously not Laura sitting there. Damn. But I look forward to seeing you again very soon. But thanks, Carlos.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at contact@secretsfromacoach.com or follow us on Insta or Facebook. If you're a Spotify listener, give us a rating as it's easier for people to find us. And if you want to know more, visit our website www.secretsfromacoach.com and sign up for our newsletter. Here to cheer you on and help you thrive in the ever-changing world of work.